Hi, it's Nianzi. Here is my assignment, Programming Essentials. For part one, for the given code output is always welcome because OR is used incorrectly, and the user ID should not be case sensitive either. And also, ID and password should be corresponded rather than using two passwords for same ID. For my code, I use a while loop to give user multiple entries until they log in successfully. Then I combine the validation of ID and password together for two users, and then use upper to avoid the case sensitive. If ID and password are matched at the same time, then print welcome and break the loop. Otherwise, it will print invalid. For the generated code, it was defined as a function, and the validation is simpler by using dictionary, which can be referential, I think. However, I think information of users can be served as a parameter outside the function, which allows future extension for new users. And for the finalized code, I use dictionary to see if ID and password are matched from ChatGPT, which I think is simpler, and I use user info as parameters in case of any changing. For part two, from the test data, we can see that the proposed code doesn't restart the loop for a new input when claim is greater than budget. It would continue to call the next line and do subtraction. After a claim is subtracted, it would have a cache for claim, which may result in an early break of loop if cache is greater than the remaining budget. Another thing is that if input of claim is negative, it should be prompted rather than subtracted. Also, it lacks of an exception if inputs are not numerical. For my code, I defined two functions and use incoming parameter for budget. Then I use if condition to see if claim is greater than 0 or greater than the budget. Also, an exception is used for non-numerical inputs. And for the generated code, the test data shows that it doesn't handle the situation of negative claim and non-numerical input. It rounds to two decimal numbers. However, I don't think rounding should be used because it may show incorrect number on the balance, which can be illustrated in the third test data. And here is the finalized code, which is same as my code. For the given code in part 3, the reason why output is 0 is that the for loop only goes through numbers from 0 to 22 and not each character in the string. And the value assignment from line 2 to line 6 can be simplified also. There are also too many else if, so better use a dictionary. For my code, I define a string of votes, a list of candidates, and a dictionary to store the result. In the function, I use a for loop to assign all values to 0, and loop the string to accumulate the counts for each key and get the total counts. And for the generated code, assignment of the values in dictionary is simpler than mine, and the calculation of total counts is only one line by using sum. But I think the function should consider candidates list and a dictionary as incoming parameters in case of any changes of data. And here is the finalized function. I have used the dictionary to assign values, which is one line simpler than mine, and also separate the count of total instead of call it in the for loop as well. For part 4, test data of given code implies a wrong assignment of values because it splits nothing instead of split a comma. Quantity is not converted to integer, so it cannot do any adding or subtraction. Duration is not defined in the first place, so it will lead to an error when printing it. And also tedious if conditions are used, so better use a loop in a dictionary. For my code, I define a function with incoming parameters of balance and log, and use for loop to get each transaction, and split again to get details of each transaction. After converting quantity into integers, I use if conditions to decide if it is necessary to assign a new key and value, and then do the adding and the subtraction. For the generated code, the differences are it uses a copy to generate a new data. It may not influence this case, but it is inspiring because it preserves the original data. It also has a simpler way to assign initial values, and it uses not in instead of in to validate the type of fruits. Here is the finalized code, and I try to use not in to validate the type of fruits and reduce an extra if condition in my code. And the value assignment is also simpler after using split in the ChatGPT instead of using index in the transaction. As for takeaways of this assignment, I have realized the importance of fundamental grammars when learning one programming language. We need to pay more attention to fundamentals first, and then it's advanced programming. And there are always different ways to solve a same problem, and we should try different methods. And after that, you have to do code review and compare them and try to optimize it to get best efficiency. And also to deepen your memory, we need to do more writing rather than reading, and always write a comment on your own code, not only for yourself but also for others who read your code. And then we need to be more critical on generated code and instead of copying and heavily relying on AI platforms. And last thing I want to say that in the future, it can be referential when learning other languages when already know one, because I think they are just different with grammars, not the coding logic.